Hi folks, Dom Lawson here from Metal Hammer Magazine. Here to probably not brighten up your Tuesday at all, really, but maybe give you something to do. So to try and help you drown out the voices in your head telling you to set fire to Christmas trees and scream at children. I noticed the other day. One thing I've noticed actually is why is it that most Christmas songs are effectively just some cunt pointing out that it's Christmas? We fucking know. What? I know it's Christmas. It's the same date every year. Fucking idiots. Anyway, this is the time of year when music journalists like myself, i.e. they're not particularly well organised or clever ones, have their head in their hands as they realise that certain albums should have been in their top 20 and weren't, and that there's no going back because the top 20 has been published and you feel a fool. Not that anyone apart from me cares about the ghastly mistakes I've made in my top 20 this year, but it's one of those things that you take to the grave, and every time the album that you missed out is mentioned, you kind of go yeah. So today, I'm gonna tell you about an album that should have been in my top 20, and I don't know why I did. I wrote the list so long ago that I hadn't heard this record at that point, because we get asked to write these lists pretty early, really, so you don't really get a chance to kind of listen to everything in time. But it's a band that those of you that are actually avid followers of the underground extreme metal scene will almost certainly have heard of this band. They're from Arizona, and they're called Vektor, and they're one of those bands that you kind of see people online talking excitedly about, like, have you fucking heard Vektor? Fucking hell. They're amazing, and yes, indeed they are absolutely fucking incredible. Their debut album came out in 2009, I think it was called Black Future, and it was just one of the best thrash metal albums of the modern era, or of any era really. It's just absolutely phenomenal record, and they're stylistically, I mean, there are retro thrash bands around now that are just copying the old stuff, and that's all well and good, and then there are great bands with very modern sounds but kind of also echoing older stuff, and we have some great bands in this country, Eve Island, Savage Messiah, and Mutant, and all that kind of stuff. There's some great stuff around. But Vektor, I think, are arguably the best that I've heard, really, of the current generation of bands. And there's something about their stuff. There's definitely a real... Well, anyway, the point is they've got a new album, and it's called Outer Isolation, and it's on the Heavy Artillery label. And it's an absolutely mind-blowing piece of work. I mean, their sound is very much rooted in that mid-80s kind of, I would say, early Creator, early Slayer, and Dark Angel, and the very early Voivod stuff. I would say it was kind of an amalgam of those things, but with a real kind of progressive edge to it as well. They're not just, it's not just 3.5 minute heads down blistering thrash tracks. There's a lot of clever stuff going on in their tunes. I mean, the new album opens with a 10-minute epic, and there are tracks on the album that break down into kind of lovely mellow progressive parts that are just seamlessly blended into the rest of it, which is as vicious as any thrash that I've heard in a long time, since Pleasure to Kill and things like that, when bands were playing out of their skins because I guess they lack the technical ability to slow down. Really, it was a case of, right, we're going to play as fast as we can because that's the best way of getting out this rage that we've got, rather than doing the more measured approach, which can be fantastic too, but is somehow a little less exciting. And Vektor, although amazing musicians, also seem to have that fire and that brutality and that that kind of youthful exuberance and intensity that only kind of bands that really fucking mean it ever come close to. It's got a kind of, I mean, their artwork and their imagery and stuff it's got a kind of sci-fi edge to it. The band's name and the band's logo. It's got a Voivody feel to it, and that's really refreshing too. It's better than, because so many of the thrash bands that come out now are just, it's more about kind of dressing like a thrash band from the 80s and having a kind of hand drawn album cover that that kind of goofy humour that was very, a big thing in thrash in the 80s, and I love Municipal Waste as much as anybody. I think they're an amazing band, but Vektor, there's I don't know if it's right to say there's a seriousness to what they do. I'm sure the guys have a sense of humour, but there's a real kind of genuine darkness in their stuff, and a real kind of fiery intensity that makes a conviction that makes them just so believable. It's just incredibly exciting stuff, and that I guess you have to be. I guess you have to be particularly into the underground scene to kind of stumble across these things by accident, really. But I think they're a band that are going to develop a reputation over time and be one of those bands that in the same way that While Heaven Wept actually ended up on a bigger label after years of being quite obscure and only talked about in kind of doom circles and by those in the know, and the kind of purists. I think Vektor have the potential to be one of those bands that will be so talked about because they're that fucking good that eventually one of the bigger labels will pick them up and go, no, we've seriously got to have this band on our label. They are, absolutely something else. I've not been this excited about a thrash band in years, and I think they're one of those bands that reminds you why you like metal in the first place, because their records come on and it's like being strapped into a roller coaster that then takes off at an inhuman speed and just it takes your breath away, and you're kind of sat there going like Pete Murphy in the old Max L tape adverts, sat in his chair with his hair blowing back. It's just kind of it's the ultimate extreme hairdryer treatment, and yet so much melody and so much cleverness and structural subtlety in what they do. Absolutely phenomenal record. I don't think I have that much more to say about it, really, but all I can say is that I think the entire album is streaming online. I'm not sure where, maybe on their own website. Check it out. I mean, I'm sure they've got a Facebook and a MySpace and all that. It's Vektor, spelled Vektor. And maybe on the Heavy Artillery Records website as well. But anyway, the whole album's being streamed, so I reckon if you like your vicious thrash and you like interesting progressive music, then I absolutely recommend this to you. Again, it would have been in my top 20 had I heard it before I finished my list off. And I will take that to the grave, frankly, and I feel almost like shedding a tear over it now. But there you go. That's it. It's for speaking as somebody who in the mid '80s had a mullet, skinny jeans. God, I remember that. Well, the whole notion of me wearing skinny jeans now is just ridiculous. I can barely get baggy jeans on, let alone skinny ones. But and I used to wear high-tech high tops, and I'd have my incredibly skinny Metallica shirt on and all the rest of it, and I was a proper thrash kid. This album would have made my brain pop, I think, if I'd heard it. I remember the first time I heard Voivod, it was like, wow, I already like thrash metal, but this is giving me making my brain rotate at 1,000,000 miles an hour. Just mind-blowing stuff. So there you go, Vektor, Outer Isolation, one of the best metal albums of 2011 without a doubt, and definitely one for the true thrashers out there. And anyone else who likes metal, give it a go, because they're a fucking killer band, and I'd love to see them live. Wouldn't that be ace? So hopefully their star will rise, and we'll get the opportunity to see them over here next year. And if anyone from Vektor is watching, please come to the UK and play a show at the Underworld so we can all get drunk and punch each other in the head while you're playing, because that would just be amazing. So there you go. That was today's Iron Sandwich. Christmas is approaching, so apologies for that. It's not strictly my fault, but sorry anyway. And fuck off Jonah Louie, of course. And I shall see you all maybe tomorrow. Who knows if I can be bothered to do another one of these. I'm losing the will to live at the moment, so there you go. Yeah, have a fantastic day. Heavy fucking metal, thrash till death, and cheers.